fam, welcome back. So today we're going over Bitcoin and why Bitcoin is likely to continue going up through the end of the year, which I've already told you guys for eons. So with that being said, let's get it. Okay. So the first thing I want to go over is the jobs data before we get into actually talking about Bitcoin. So there was two really, really important things that I was looking for this morning. Again, if you guys don't follow this kind of stuff, you wouldn't know about it, but these are considered to be market movers. So the first most important thing here was the non-farm payrolls, the expectation. The expectation, basically the forecast here was that it was going to be lower than the prior release, but as you guys can see, it significantly outperformed. So why does this matter? Because if it comes in lower than expectations, that's actually a bearish sign, because that means that the economy truly is slowing, because again, there's not as many people on payroll, which means theoretically the unemployment should go up, but that's not what happened. And I already told you guys that, that the Fed, after they began cutting rates, and they're going to continue to cut throughout the rest of the year. I know a lot of people are thinking like, oh god, now that the non-farm payrolls is increased and the amount of jobs that are available are increasing, now they're gonna hike rates again. Guys, I'm pretty sure they're not gonna do that. Okay. Look, I already told you, as the Fed's cutting rates progressively going forward in time, that companies will hire more and more people in lockstep with the rate cuts. Okay. And we're already seeing that play out here. So again, I was one of, if not the only person, as far as I know, on YouTube talking about this. That everybody else was bearish and like, oh god, it's going to come in horrible, the markets are going to crash. Guys, that's not what happened. Okay. Generally speaking, when the market usually is, when there's an overcrowded trade, usually the opposite is what happens. Okay. I'll just say that. So yeah, that's pretty much what happened. Very bullish. The markets loved it. I mean, there was kind of a pump and dump, but for the most part, the markets did pretty much end up where they started, which, put the markets at basically a new daily higher high, I believe. We'll take a look at that in a second. So unemployment also came in lower than expectations. Again, I told you guys that I expected unemployment rate to remain low and or flat, and that's exactly what we saw. And I told you this before the data came out. Okay, so it's not like, the data came out and then I was like, oh yeah, guys, look, I knew that it was going to be lower than what it was before. No, I literally have been telling you guys this for a while, before the data was even known to anybody in the markets. And what happened? Well, exactly what I told you. Okay, so the S&P closed a weekly higher high. That's kind of the important thing here. And again, the point I want to make here is I'll get into Bitcoin in a minute, but you guys can see that we closed another daily high. Again, it's not quite at all-time highs, and again, I know this video is not really about the S&P, but you guys can kind of see like this is a W pattern that's very bullish. Again, if I were to kind of zoom out here, this actually kind of does look like a inverse head and shoulders pattern, sort of. It's really ugly, but you can see it. I would say this is overall more or less bullish. Okay, I'm not too worried about the markets at this point. I do think they're going to go higher throughout the end of the year. The other thing that people are not considering when it comes to markets going higher towards the end of the year, and again, I am much more bullish going into the end of the year than I am from the beginning of this year. The reason being is because a lot of the concerns, the uncertainty that people are worried about, that's going to be out of the way. Okay, the elections will happen, the midterms will happen. We already know the Fed's cutting rates. They're going to continue to cut rates. That's going to become more and more obvious as time goes on. Okay. And as far as I know, once the Fed has began cutting rates, they've never stopped cutting rates. Okay, they don't go from a rate cut back to a rate hike. As far as I know, I've never seen it happen. Usually, when they begin cutting, they continue cutting. The only thing I would expect Powell to do is to just simply pause rates if he was going to do it. But I really highly doubt the Fed's even going to do that, if I'm being completely honest. Maybe they kind of slow walk the rates with the 25 BP cut. But if I'm being honest with y'all, I think we're going to get 50s in both November and December, because again, if it was worst case scenario, the Fed would have to cut rates faster. if it's best case scenario, the Fed can cut rates because they can afford to do so because inflation is no longer a threat. So why wouldn't they want the GDP to expand? That's good for government. That's good for people working jobs, right? Makes sense. So a lot of that uncertainty that is currently headwinds will become tailwinds towards the end of the year. So you got to understand the flip in sentiment. Okay, when the markets get when the markets see that we're past elections, past the midterms, and Trump gets reelected, he'll put an end to the wars, all that stuff, and the Fed keeps cutting rates. Okay, the vast majority of the uncertainty is gone. It's out of the way, and the markets are forward looking. So when they see that 80% of the uncertainty is gone, what do you think the markets are going to do? They know what to expect at this point. There's no more uncertainty. So with the narrative being bullish at that point, looking forward in time, they're going to go higher. Okay, that's just the way the markets work. So let's get into Bitcoin. So the first thing I want to show you guys before we go over the major metrics here is I want to show you guys these interesting patterns. Okay, so I've talked about this in videos before. Again, my goal here is, I guess, more or less to kind of quell your uncertainty about the markets. I get it. If this is your first time in crypto, most people are probably like panicking because the Bitcoin's not going up or down and they're scared it's going to go down. I will tell you guys right now, I have never seen a bull flag pattern ever that has ended up dumping. I've never seen it. This is an extremely high probability setup. I don't know exactly what the percentage is, but I would wager it's probably somewhere between like an 80 to 90, maybe even a 90 to 95% chance of continuing to the upside. Again, this is a continuation pattern, okay? That's all a bull flag is. It's a bullish pattern, but it's also a continuation pattern. When price goes up, it creates this flag. What does it do? It continues going up when it breaks out. So what are we seeing on the Bitcoin chart? Well, kind of looks pretty similar to what I just showed you guys. It looks like we went up. Now we're consolidating within the flag, and theoretically, it should continue to the upside. Again, we're about to get that MACD golden cross on the weekly. You can see it there. The histogram is turning that lighter shade of red and starting to slowly push towards getting above that zero line into bull territory. I don't think I need to say much more about that. So here's another pattern, okay, descending channel. This is the bullish version. The opposite would be the rising channel where the price goes up and then it dumps out of it. But in this case, the price is falling and then the market pumps the price out of it, okay? Because again, it's a bullish pattern. What is this? This is a descending channel. Price, based on probabilities, should pump to the upside, okay? And yet another pattern. Again, this is a falling broadening wedge. What usually happens in a falling broadening wedge, you guys can see the pattern here, okay? A lot of these kind of slow bleeding down patterns, wedge patterns, for the most part, most of them are bullish, okay? And then the opposite is true for the bears. But in this case, it's a bullish pattern, okay? So price kind of bounces around within here and then boom, pops to the upside. And then, of course, the target is, I believe, the measured move is from the last local low retest of this wedge pattern to the top of that area, and then you would measure it out in time to where the breakout is. That's kind of how that works. Now, if I readjust this for wicks, the bottom wicks here, you guys can literally see what does this look like. Okay, usually I only do the candle bodies, but if we're doing the wicks too, you can see this is a falling broadening wedge. And what happens with a falling broadening wedge? I mean, this literally looks almost exactly like what Bitcoin's doing. You can see how eerily similar this is, right? I mean, just look at it. And then look at that. Need I say more? So again, that's a bullish pattern for crypto. Or for Bitcoin, I should say. Well, for crypto in general, because when Bitcoin goes up, it lifts everything with it. So again, cup and handle pattern. What does this pattern do? Cup, and then you get the handle, which again is kind of like a bull flag or descending channel, and then boom, price goes to the upside. I have to zoom out for this one so you guys can really see it, but what do we have here? A huge cup, which was the bear market, and then a handle, and then the price should go up from there. So these are the different bullish patterns that we're seeing on the chart currently. I mean, literally, you can slice this 4 different ways, and it comes out to be exactly the same thing. They're all bullish, okay? They're all bullish. All of the signs here point to Bitcoin going up. I don't think I need to say much more about this. All right, so let's get into the other metrics here. So basically, the crypto 5-year search term here, again, it's not doing much of anything. We're pretty much sitting at the bear market lows. That tells me that we're still early and it's still a good time to buy, because if we were at 100 or 70 or 80 or some crazy stuff like that, then I might be like, yikes. Okay, maybe we need to go ahead and drop our bags and get the hell out before the entire market dumps, because once the whales drop the market, they cash out of their positions, markets get overpriced, bulls get exhausted, which again, we're far away from this. It becomes kind of it feeds on itself. Okay. So bull markets feed on themselves, bear markets feed on themselves. Everybody gets FOMO. People keep piling on top of each other and piling on top of each other. And then you just get this crazy run up. And then of course, the opposite happens in the bear market. So again, pretty much this just says we're early and that the bull market top is not truly in yet, because if it was, we'd be somewhere between 70 to 100, and we have not seen that at all during this entire move up. Same thing with Bitcoin. I mean, it's literally, verbatim. It's or on par pretty much exactly with the other chart. We were at, 70 to 100 when it was actually worth noticing by retail, and apparently retail doesn't think it's worth noticing right now. So when retail is not looking at this space, guess what the whales and the institutions are doing? They're buying, like I literally showed you guys in the previous video. Okay, so fear and greed, once again, is more neutral. I think we're going to swing more towards the greed side once we get further into the end of the year. I don't think I need to say much more about that. Again, we've spent a long time kind of down in this neutral to fear territory. Usually when we get these blow off tops, you can see we're pretty much the opposite happens. Okay, so we're in this greed territory for a very long time before pulling back, again in greed for a very long time before eventually pulling back. Have we spent a lot of time in greed? I mean, we kind of did when Bitcoin hit 75,000, but you can see it's not like really just pushing the limits here like we saw previously. That didn't happen here. Okay, but we spent a long time down here. What happens when we spend a long time down here? Usually it goes up. Okay, long time down here goes up. Long time, really long time down here. But what happened ultimately? It went up. Okay. So this is basically an inverse indicator. When we spend a long time at the bottom, theoretically, the upside is coming. Okay. When we spend a long time at the top, which we're not at right now, theoretically, the downside is coming. Again, we have been in the fear territory for a long time. Okay. So NVRV. This is pretty self-explanatory. We're not even close to these pink boxes. That's usually the sell signal. Again, this thing times the tops almost perfectly. I mean, even at this top, we were at a 4. We have not even seen close to that yet. And based on the patterns we're looking at, I really highly doubt we're at the top. I would give like a 0.01% chance that 75,000 was the top for Bitcoin. I just don't think so. And again, it doesn't make any sense for institutions and whales to be buying record amounts of Bitcoin in this consolidation phase when Bitcoin's already had a huge run up if they thought the market was going to drop. Market psychology tells me that that is not likely the case. Okay. So that covers that. Bitcoin rainbow chart, pretty simple. I mean, the higher up on this thing we are, the more expensive and ridiculous it is, or it gets, I should say, in terms of FOMO. If we were closer to the red, I'd be a little terrified and wanting to be getting the hell out, because that dump, the big dump, the bear market dump, could be coming any day now, but we're not there. Okay. We're in the beginning stages of the bull run, not at the end, in my opinion. So something I wanted to point out that I think is important. Okay. Once we get past the halving, you can see that the price spends some time in the blue line. Okay. The blue line are basically between the blue and the green line. So basically between buy and basically a fire sale. Literally after every single halving, I mean, guys, I can't even make this up. You can see time and time again before the bull run actually starts, we spend time in this area. Okay. And what are we doing right now after the halving? We're spending time in basically buy and basically a fire sale before what happens? The parabolic bull run. Every single time. I literally cannot make this up. Okay. So the Newpol chart, this one's pretty self-explanatory. Again, this is a pretty strong indicator of when we are at a top. It usually gets to I mean, it gets pretty damn close to euphoria and greed, if not all the way up in there. It's a pretty strong indicator, pretty accurate. And yeah, we're just not even close to euphoria and greed yet. So, in my opinion, we haven't even touched the top of belief and denial. So, in my opinion, I still think likely we are not at the top for Bitcoin. Okay, Pi cycle top indicator. Um, so I'm not going to go over this too much. We go over this a lot, but basically the gist of this is as the market goes up, it does occasionally dip below the yellow line here. It's happened before. You can see it happen right here during the pandemic dump. It happened back here in 2023. Kind of happened a little bit during 2017, but generally speaking, we still went up. And then, of course, kind of sort of tapped that level in 2013, 2012. During a bull run, still went up. Okay. The point I want to make here about the Pi cycle top indicator is the parabolic phase of the bull run happens after the price of Bitcoin gets above the green EMA. Okay. After the price gets above the green EMA, boom. After the price gets above the green EMA, boom, rocket ship. After the price gets above the green EMA, you kind of get my point here. Again, the green EMA as of right now is sitting at $111,000. So Bitcoin actually has to get above $111,000 according to this metric for the bull run to even begin. Okay, for the final leg to begin the parabolic phase, it has to get above six figures, basically. So those numbers currently, where they range right now, is roughly about 61,000 to 110,000. Price currently at not at 65,000. It's at 62,000, but still it is above the yellow line right now. And generally, when these lines cross or touch, that signals the top. Again, we got to get above the green EMA before we even get close to having those lines touch. So we're way, way far away from the top, in my opinion. Okay, so M2 money supply. This one's pretty basic. When the M2 starts running up, it usually kind of feeds on itself and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So I'm kind of expecting the M2 money supply to do one of these mountainous moves that we see during the bull run. Okay, anytime this green peak here gets explosive to the upside, the blue line will move up with it, which is the actual global supply. And then the price of Bitcoin, which is the black line, you guys can see it just goes kitty wampus, pretty much just goes straight through the stratosphere. So I'm expecting a similar move here. Okay, so in terms of the Bitcoin price, I mean, everything's lining up perfectly. Okay, so you can see every single time the RSI broke out, or basically the RSI EMAs broke out. What happened? Bitcoin went up right here. Bitcoin went up. Back here in mid 2021, Bitcoin went up. And again, we're seeing potentially a breakout start right now. What should happen? Well, this is a bull flag, descending channel, descending broadening wedge, cup and handle pattern. All of them are bullish. So a breakout, right? Again, in my opinion, the whales, the institutions, they would not be buying in the zone in this kind of controlled space here before it broke out with the intention of dumping the price. Okay. Because again, they have their money at stake in this and their investors' money at stake in this. It would look really bad from a reputational point if they told all their people like, oh yeah, come buy Bitcoin with us and these ETFs, and then they just dump the price and all of their investors' money went to zero. That would be kind of stupid, don't you think? Again, I'm not knocking anybody here. I mean, a lot of you probably have not spent as much time in this space as I have, but it's just kind of the idea behind the psychology. Pretty much paints the picture, and then the charts tell the story. Okay, so again, we kind of had this falling channel pattern back here. This was at the bottom of a bear market, so it was different, but you guys can kind of see the falling channel, which lasted a very long time. This actually lasted longer than what we're currently experiencing right now, roughly about 7 months. It did end up breaking to the upside. And actually, there's another one back here I can show you guys even further back. This one in 2019, which was the mini bull run. So this is actually very similar to what we're seeing in 2024 right now. So we had this huge run up and then we had a consolidation, kind of a bull flag descending channel, and then boom, the real parabolic run started. This one actually lasted longer. Okay, this one was basically about, roughly about 9 to 10 months in length before it eventually broke out. Okay, So as of right now, we're still shorter in time than this one was. And again, Bitcoin can kind of have a market phase into the elections before eventually taking off. You can see Bitcoin's price really started ripping in October and November. So how exactly that plays out this time is anybody's guess. But the point I want to make here is that Bitcoin did not break all-time highs and go to new all-time highs until after the elections were over. So this was kind of the breaking point. Okay. So the elections happened, and then the following month, Bitcoin took off to the upside. So it could be possible that we may not even see an all-time high for Bitcoin until December. Whether that's actually the case or not is anybody's guess. Again, I kind of theorize that what's going to happen here is this is the final bounce. Okay. We're likely not going to hit the bottom of this channel again because, again, we're too close to the time Bitcoin's supposed to be going to all-time highs. So what will happen here, likely, in my opinion, no guarantees, is that we'll create a series of higher highs and higher lows. But those of you guys that are freaking out here, like, oh, we got a rejection, like we got a higher high and then it dumped, it means it's going to go to zero. Guys, that's not going to happen. Okay, the whales can't make money if Bitcoin goes to zero. The institutions can't make money if Bitcoin goes to zero, not in Bitcoin at least. That would be kind of stupid, especially since the SEC just gave the green light, right? So what I'm expecting here is we'll bounce off the bottom of this green zone. Again, this green zone is you guys can see this is an important level. So this was basically the resistance for the previous bull market. So in my opinion, what we're going to do, and I don't know this for sure, okay, but what I suspect is going to happen is we'll bounce off the green zone, kind of push above the wedge, maybe a little more slowly than this. It's hard to say. Then get a bounce off the top of this channel, and then Bitcoin will start pushing or maybe kind of chopping sideways and then eventually push up above this green box and break out to new all-time highs going into the end of this year and the start of next year. So anyways, hope you all enjoyed this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.